Okay, so now we're looking at the updatable file, but before that I actually want to go to the game object file and look in here. So here we can see the default constructor, destructor, copy constructor, assignment constructor, submit entry. This is called by the user in the scene in their constructor, and basically begins the process of getting the scene entry called. And submit exit, same thing, called for scene exit to be called eventually. Now the scene entry and scene exit, those are used by the user in their class, and they create them. Get current 3D cam, get current 2D cam, those are the wrappers I was talking about earlier for getting the current 3D and 2D cam. Then we have the game object exit command as a friend class. Same with the enter command. We have the registration state and a pointer to the registration command and the deregistration command. If we go over to the .cpp, we can see the registration state is set in the default constructor, as well as a new registration and deregistration command. Now the submit entry is called by the game object enter exit command. So we'll just take a look at the enter command real quick. Here we can see it's very simple. It just has a pointer to the game object. It says execute. And the game object enter command constructor is called with the game object inserted. So here we can see it makes sure that the pending registration and calls scene entry and then currently registered. So in the game object class, we check in here to make sure that they're deregistered, and change it to pending registration. But we'll see it's a little bit different in the other classes. Scene manager, as we can see, it's exactly the same thing on submit entry and submit exit, except we submit the deregistration command. Oh wow, that was loud. And we submit the registration command and also what we check for the registration states. Get current 3D cam and get current 2D cam. These are the wrappers I was talking about earlier. So we can see this is called for the rendering of an object. This was a very long line, so I can definitely understand the need for a wrapper in that. So let's go ahead and look at the updatable. So here we can see there's a few differences. If I go up to the beginning of the .h, update scene registration, update scene deregistration. These are called by the user in the scene enter and exit methods. Default constructor, destructor, copy constructor, assignment operator, registration state for the update, deregistration command, registration command. Friend class is the update manager, so it can call its update because update is private. And then my delete ref for deleting it out of the update manager. Now if we go into the update scene registration and the updatable .cpp, we can see a little bit of a difference here. It's a little bit shorter, and that's because some of the things that were used in the game object enter and exit commands, or the game object.cpp, are done in the command for the updatable, which we'll see here in a second. But right here we got the default constructor. It's pretty much exactly the same as the game object default constructor. The only difference is that we're doing update deregistration and update registration commands. Now here's where it gets a little different. Update scene registration, update scene deregistration. As we can see, there's no check here because the check is done in the registration command. Actually, I think it's done in the manager. I know it does it. Ah, yes. Here we go. Sorry for the mix-up real quick. It's done in the updatable manager. My bad. I got a little mixed up for a second. But I knew they did a check. Anyway, it checks to make sure the assert registration state is pending registration. And then if it is, we put it in, currently registered, deregister, we assert that it's pending registration, currently deregistered. Now, this is for destroying the list in the update manager. I know I kind of jumped in here, so I'll just jump to the .h right after this. And then process list. All it does here is go through the list and calls update on the list. Now, all the managers are very similar for the update, for the updatable, the drawable, the inputable. All very, very, very similar. So here we have the .h, registers an object. This is called from the updatable. Oh no, I mean technically yeah, but it's called from the updatable command right here. It registers, it gives it an update, an updatable, and then as we saw in the scene.h, it has methods and registers through there. Let's see if we can find the updatable right here. Ah, right here, right there. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Anyway, I keep twisting my tongue here a little bit. Anyway, so those are called through the scene, but basically it's also called through the commands. So when the commands are executed in the update tick in the scene, that's what gets called right here, and it registers it with the scene. And as we can see, the default constructor just creates the list of updatables. I used a list for updatables this time because once again I didn't feel like the order was really that important. Copy constructor is delete. So is assignment constructor because we don't want one or more than one per scene. We've got a friend class of scene, and then there's the storage list, obviously, and then here we process the list. Okay, so if we go back to updatable, we can see it's very simple. Pending registration, submit command. Submit command. So the difference here is that it actually gets this command into the registration broker, but it still won't get it into the actual manager if it's already there. The same, I believe the drawables are the same, or at least very similar. I want to keep the same .h on the left, .cpp on the right. So here we see we're going back to the game object form. We assert in here and not in the commands. The updatables are kind of an outlier that way, I guess. You know what it was? It was because I think I made them at a different time than I made the drawables, and yeah. Anyway, still works pretty much the same. The only difference is that it does get a registration or it does get a command into the registration broker, but it won't get any further than that. And it would still be very obvious what was happening. So here we see draw scene registration, draw scene deregistration, once again called in the scene enter and exits. Default constructor, which we can see here on the right. It's very much the same for all the ables. Destructor, copy constructor, right there. Manager for the drawables. It's a friend class, so they can get in here and call the draw function. Registration state, dereg command, reg command, and delete reference. So now we'll go to the drawable manager. Actually, let's go to the commands first. So registration. So here's the registration command. As we can see, a little different than the updatable because it doesn't have that test in here. Well, actually, the updatable didn't either, did it? The manager had it. But anyway, this has this just sends it to the current scene register with the drawable. Registers the drawable in the update or in the drawable manager. Just contains a pointer to the drawable, and the constructor is just you give it a pointer to the drawable, call execute. This happens, and then we go to the drawable manager where the magic happens. So here we do a check, and here we go, .h, register, obviously registers the object, this is called from the scene, deregistered, call from the scene, default constructor, creates the list of drawables. The list is a list of pointed to drawables, copy constructor, assignment constructor, friend class of scene, storage list, and process list. Now if we go into .cpp, we can see it checks to make sure that it's not already, that it is pending registration, and therefore it currently registers it. Then we check for currently pending deregistration, check if it's currently registered, and then we set it to currently deregistered. Destructor goes in, erases the whole list, or deletes the whole list. And then process list, we here we see the first thing for the client orders, visualizers render all right in here. So if you have a visualizer activated somewhere in your code, it can just be called anywhere in the code, not just the draw method, and render all is called in the draw, in the process list for draw. So as we can see, it just goes through and draws everything that's in the draw list. So I think that's where I'm going to cut this video off. I will show the deregistration command for updatable right here. It's virtually the same, except it just says deregister. Same with the draw register and deregister. We can go into the documentation here actually for a second. Once again, very simple documentation. Most of my documentation is extremely simple until we get to the demo, which is going to be on the final video. As we can see, process the lists and calls them, calls update on them, registers this object, yada yada yada. Draw manager, once again, virtually identical. Very simple, very straight to the point. So next I will go into the input in the next video, and then we'll start in on the alarms and the collisions. Thank you.